While they are making their way, I'd like to welcome everybody once again. This is the Daymar Institute Grapevine and Mary's the Music Store debate for the Montgomery County Sheriff, Mayor, and Trustee. The Mayor, the Sheriff, and the Trustee. I'm going to explain the procedure. Each office will have its own debate. As you see, the mayors are getting prepared as we speak. Each candidate will open with a 3-minute opening statement, 3 minutes at the most. We have time being kept here. And timekeeper, will you please hold up the flags? The red flag will be a signal to stop. The orange flag is a signal for 30 seconds left for your comments, answers, and responses. We expect everybody to be respectful and give the utmost courtesy to your competitors. The questions will begin with the seated official. The mayor will get the first question. She will have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to respond. After her response, the microphones will be muted, so nobody will be allowed to go over time. The following candidates will have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to rebut and answer the same question. And then the following question will be asked to the following candidate. That will be the order. We will have time for audience questions with a 1 minute and 30-second response. There will be no rebuttals for the audience questions. When we conclude each debate, the candidates will have a 2-minute closing statement. Once again, our first debate will be amongst the candidates for county mayor. Please welcome current mayor, the Honorable Mayor Carolyn Bowers. Her opponents in the race for county mayor are Jim Durrett and Kurt Mize. Thank you very much for being here. We will now start with opening statements with a time of 3 minutes. Mayor, we start with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for providing this opportunity today for the county mayor candidates to come forward and present what we have to offer. I'm married to Mike Bowers. He's soon to be retired from a 30-year career in law enforcement. We have 2 daughters, Laurie Campbell, married to Colonel Tim Campbell, Margaret Christian, married to Brian Christian, have 3 grandchildren, Mike Swift, Chelsea Swift, and Alice Olivia Christian, 10 months old. I have a very strong work ethic. I started working when I was in the 8th grade. I started working for my aunt and uncle at their flower shop, Heights Florist, on weekends and holidays. I worked there through high school, and part of the time while I was attending Austin Peay State University, I worked at the Austin Peay State University business office as well while I was in college. I graduated from APSU with a BS degree in business, a master's degree in administration and supervision. As soon as I graduated, I went to work for Jenkins & Wynn and worked in the office there, leaving after I'd been there 2 years as office manager. Took a job at the Clarksville-Montgomery County School System teaching business and computer and accounting classes. I taught there for 29 years. At that time, I also served in many club sponsorship positions, held memberships and officer positions in numerous professional organizations. In 1998, I was selected by my peers as Distinguished Classroom Teacher. I was elected in 1998 and served until 2010 as county trustee, where I earned over $20 million through the investment of county idle funds. I was elected Trustee of the Year for Tennessee in 2006 by the county trustees across the state. I was elected county mayor in 2006 until the present time. I have other community leadership service activities I'm involved in. I'm a graduate of the UT Leadership Academy, certified public administrator by the UT County Officials Program. I'm a member of the Tennessee Association of County Mayors, currently serving as a Middle Tennessee Vice President and Board Member. I'm also a member of the Middle Tennessee Mayor's Caucus and Executive Committee. I was a 2012 inductee in the APSU Phi Kappa Phi Academic Hall of Fame. I'm a Clarksville Rotary Club member, a past board member and officer, receiving the Service Above Self Award and the Paul Harris Fellowship, 2nd level. Graduate of Leadership Clarksville, class of 2000, and alumni member. Graduate of Leadership Middle Tennessee, class of 2006, and alumni member. Member of Restoring the Warrior's Heart, and board member. Austin Peay President, Circle of Advisors. Austin Peay School of Nursing Advisory Board. I serve on the Tennessee Efficient Schools Council, appointed by Governor Bredesen Haslam. I'm a lifetime member of the NAACP. Thank you.
Mr. Durrett.
Well, thank you, and is this on? Thank you, and thank you to Damar for the opportunity to be here today for the candidates for county mayor to discuss the issues that Montgomery County will be facing in the next 4 years. I'm a lifelong resident of Montgomery County. I've lived here all my life. I have a wonderful family, a wonderful wife, Mary. Mary and I have 3 kids, Jimmy, Thomas, and Paulina. We have 3 grandkids, Thomas, Reese, and Walker, and we love doing stuff with our family, and especially if it's in the outdoors. I went to work for the Clarksville Street Department at a very young age, and after 10 years of service, I became Director of Streets for the city of Clarksville. After approximately 20 years, I served a brief stint as interim general manager of Clarksville Gas and Water, and then the last 2 years of a 31-year career with the city of Clarksville, I served as chief of staff. I've managed budgets in excess of $100 million. I've dealt with every employee situation imaginable, and I know how to deal with the public. I'm truly concerned about the county's fiscal health. I'm concerned that we have $340 million, that we're $340 million in debt today, and if we stop spending today, it'd take us almost 4 years based on our current revenues to pay that debt off. They say we hadn't had a tax increase in 8 years, but 8 years ago, if you were paying $1,000 on a piece of property in Montgomery County, today you're paying $1,155. That's a 25% increase, and that is a tax increase. Our schools, we have to give them the funding that they need so we can give our kids, our children, the opportunities that they need to live their dreams out. Our children are the future of Montgomery County. Public safety and the volunteer fire department, we have to give those folks the tools and the resources that they need that they can keep all Montgomery Countyans safe. And our transportation infrastructure has to be addressed. We've got congestion all over Montgomery County. If we don't do something with the congestion, we don't have economic development opportunities. And again, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be here today to participate in this forum. Thank you.
Mr. Mize.
Well, I'd like to thank my wife for allowing me to be here today, because when I was first given the opportunity to do this debate, I was so excited. I circled down 31st and put it on my calendar and put it in. My wife looked at that 31st. She says, "What's that debate on the 31st? I said, "Well, I have a schedule out of Damar Institute." She said, "Do you want to see your next birthday?" I said, "I would like to." She said, "Do you realize that's our anniversary?" So today we've been married 44 years, and my wife has said, "You may attend this thing." We have compromised. But, recently I was interviewed, we were interviewed by a newspaper of what's your success? How do you go 44 years in marriage? And I told the man, I said, well, it all started on our honeymoon. I said, we took a trip down to the Grand Canyon on mules. And first time she was in the lead, the mule slipped. She said, "That's one." Well, kept going down the Grand Canyon, mule slipped again. She said, "That's two." Well, the third time the mule slipped, she took out her gun and shot him. Bang! I started to yell at her. She looked at me calmly and she said, "That's one." I think when I left here today, I think she said, "That's two," but I'm not sure. But in all seriousness, I'm Kurt Mize. I run Hymanson Steel and Salvage on the bypass for the last 30 years. I know how to run a business. I've been in the military. I served in Vietnam. I graduated from Austin Peay. I have a master's degree from Memphis State University. I know how to run a business. I know how to get us out of debt. If I can't get us out of debt, there's no one in here that can. I'm asking for your vote, not for me. I don't ask the vote for you. I ask the vote for your children, because they're the ones that's going to have to pay the bill of that $340 million in debt. They're the ones that's going to have to pay for all that overspending, all that bad planning, all that lack of financial planning that we've had for the last 8 years. I'm sorry, she's done the best she could, but it's just not good enough. I appreciate it. I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, we will begin the debate with the first question. This question goes to Mayor Bowers, and we will have a 2 minute and 30 seconds response time, and then Mr. Durrett and Mr. Mize will have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to respond to the answer, and then answer the same question themselves. Mayor, what are the top issues facing the mayor's office today?
Okay. I was told first question I'd get were the duties. Well, the top issues, of course, as you've heard my opponents talk about wasteful spending and cost overruns and how the county's in debt. The question I'd like to ask to my opponents is, of course, just theoretically, wonder what they would have done if our population's grown over 12,000 since the last census in 2010. So I guess I would have to say, what would you have done if you'd had all that overcrowding in schools? How would you have managed it? Would you have not seen fit to provide a school and classrooms other than portable classrooms for students that need a quality education? And they say they want the best education for our students. Well, the best education is just not having students in portable classrooms where when you have bad weather, they have to go inside and sit in the hallway and they can't have their classes like they normally do. So I think funding is one of our major issues right now in our community because we're experiencing rapid growth. We know that we're one of the top places to locate and live across the United States. A lot of retired military people are coming to Montgomery County to live because of the efficient cost of living and because of the quality of life we have here, because of the low taxes. One difficulty we're having right now is because it's difficult to fund on the tax rate we have the capital outlay that maintains the growing assets that the Clarkson-Montgomery County school system and the Montgomery County government have. So it's a financial challenge every year, and that's why we have chosen, since bond interest rates are low, to fund some of the expenses that are capital outlay expenses and capital projects with bonds. Because right now, we have an aggressive payback schedule on our bonds, and we will have 50% of our debt paid off in 5 years. And it's not $340,000, it's $340 million, it's $320 million right now. And with interest rates low on bonds, it provides an economical solution to our growth challenge. When my opponents call this frivolous spending, I call it physically responsible growth management. Long-term assets can be funded by bonds when they're expected to last over 15 years. Shorter-term large expenses have to be managed in another way. They have to be funded with the tax rate. This type of expenditure is funded out of the operating budget, so more annual revenue is needed to fund those items.
That is your time, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Durrett, the same question.
Well, in response to Mayor Bowers asking the question, the one thing I would say is we're about to spend $18 million on a school out off of Oakland Road, and we've got a school that sits off of Dixie B Road that's got a capacity of about 52%. So half that school's vacant. That to me, Mayor, please, that to me is frivolous spending. We could draw lines and rezone people, but I think there's 5 issues that we're facing. And number one, and first and foremost, is frivolous spending. 66%, that's how much our debt has gone up in the 8 years, but our population's only grown 33%. That math just does not work for us. From an economic development standpoint, we have to keep our faces in front of regional and national players and bring better and higher paying jobs into Montgomery County. Education, I talked about in my opening, we've got to fund education to the fullest. If we don't spend $4.5 million on a parking lot, maybe we could give some of that money to our school system. Transportation, I talked about that in the opening also. We've got to address it. If we don't address our congestion problems that we're having, our economic development opportunities will go down the tube. And finally, public safety. And I said this in the opening too. Public safety, including our volunteer fire department, we got to give those people what they need so they can keep us safe. Thank you.
Mr. Mize.
Well, we had a debate at Austin Peay State University, one of our very first ones, which is televised. And in that debate, the mayor verified that we were $340 million in debt. A week ago, she was on WJZM on Clarksville in Review, and she was asked the question about the debt. And she was asked a question in response to my being on a couple of weeks ago about 340 million. She stated it was 322 million. Now, it may be just a coincidence, but if you subtract the $18 million from the Oakland school, from the 340, it becomes 322. Well, Jim, I think we just figured out how to reduce the budget. We'll have an election year every year, and we'll reduce the budget down by at least $5 million, or maybe $18 million. And if you keep that Ponzi scheme going that you've got in government, we may be getting it down in 3 years. It's just amazing. The debt, the spending, the parking lot, there is no cost analysis with this administration at all. What I mean by cost analysis, if you have a project, I've been in business long enough to know if I have a project, I do the cost, and then I analyze what that may be down the road. How many people am I going to need to maintain the park? What kind of lawnmower equipment am I going to need now for over there at Veterans Plaza when you've got a maze over there and you can't get in and through the parking lot very effectively? There's no way. She has no cost analysis. She doesn't know how to do a cost analysis. I don't believe anyone up here knows how to do a cost analysis except for me. I guarantee you, if you elect me, there will be a cost analysis, and you will know where every penny, I will know where every penny is being spent. Thank you.
The second question, we will start with Mr. Durrett. Are the demands for the Clarksville-Montgomery County school system being met to provide our children the needed preparation to go into the future?
Well, I think if we could wave that magic wand, I think every department in county government would probably want more money. I took it upon myself to talk to some of the officials in the school system, and I think right now, basically, most of the needs are being met. But imagine what $1.4 million would do to further your children's education. And that $1.4 million, 900,000 of it is over budget on the parking lot at Veterans Plaza. 500,000 is over budget at the park off 149. So just imagine what that money would do for our education system. That's $1.4 million. And again, the Oakland school situation, total lack of transparency. We could have redrawn some zoning lines and put people in a school that's almost half empty, but no, we're going to spend $18 million on a new school.
Mr. Mize.
I have to agree with Mr. Durrett. I have no problems with that. The only thing I would add to it, I would like to see established a Buy Montgomery County program. I would lead that program. The more we can buy in Montgomery County, the more sales tax we have. The more sales tax we have, the more money is generated to the school system. And I believe that's where we need to go instead of property tax. So I'm very adamant in providing Buy Montgomery County products. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
You know, I think these opponents, some of them don't understand exactly what the duties of the mayor are. The mayor does not have the responsibility nor the ability to decide which schools, which children go to which schools. So there's some things the mayor's duties are defined by Tennessee code. And as far as cost overruns, it's hard to determine what's under the pavement when it's been there 50 years. And there have been a lot of accidents at that parking lot, and there had not been anything done to it. There's collapsed sewer and water lines under it, so it was to the detriment of a lot of people that visit that area to have it redesigned. When we talk about cost overruns on projects, Mr. Durrett's not without that happening when he was the director of the street department as well. One of the small overages he had, I know, was a $500,000 overage when his Peachers Mill Road project, not to mention some other sidewalk issues that have occurred that have cost the city millions of dollars. But yes, I think the needs of the Clarksville-Montgomery County school system, the students' needs are being met. I think there's some new programs, that the school system is currently providing that are asking and getting higher students' performance standards in reading and math. Our students are developing a higher understanding of needs and problem solvings. 50 to 60% of our students go to college, and some go in the military. Excuse me. The STEM academies, excuse me. The STEM academies, excuse me, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, excuse me, provide opportunities for development of writing skills, as well as math and science skills, Students here learn real world problem solving skills. Our department heads, such as John Darty and Pete Reed, have assisted in providing real world problem solving activities for students. The new curriculum that the school system is involved in now improves basic skills and also teaches problem-based learning and evidence-based learning. The Common Core curriculum focuses on higher student performance standards. The county's been involved in a pilot program with Project Search for special needs students to help them learn job skills and then move into jobs after graduation.
That's your time, Mayor.
Thank you.
And we should be getting you a little bit more water.
Thank you. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. We want you to be safe. The next question will be directed to Mr. Mize. Mr. Mize, what are the best means to increase county revenue without raising taxes?
Well, that would be by Montgomery County would be the best way to get sales tax coming into the revenue. But I always remember Mr. Bob Thompson. I don't know how many remember him before the tornado. He and I talked several times. I even addressed the county commission on several of his issues. He had one issue I know would not be very popular, but he wanted to raise the restaurant tax. And in this restaurant tax, he wanted to make it a special tax that would go into special projects. Like if you had a park or if you had the special needs coming up, that you could generate these taxes to that special project. Unfortunately, the representatives that we had at that time in the State House did not respond very well, because you have to go to the State House to have that approved. They did not respond to that request or that need. Unfortunately, and we see ourselves with the property tax increase that happens all the time, but without a restaurant tax or without buying Clarksville Now program to generate more taxes, if you have a fee, it's a tax. There's no way around it. Governments you have to raise taxes at a certain time, and it should be adjusted to the inflation rate of the nation, and with a cap of at least 3%. I'm for that. I do that in my business. If that's the way it is, that's what you need to do. You have to adjust taxes every year to that inflation rate with a cap of not 3%, and you won't find yourself asking for that 40-cent tax increase when it comes up to election time. So that's what I would do. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mize. Mr. Durrett? Well, you can ask the question while the mayor's
Oh,
getting
okay,
it first.
okay. Well, I think it's a pretty short and simple answer, and I think the way to increase the county revenue is to control the spending, and we're not doing that. We're acting like the federal government. We spend, and we don't have the money, so we turn around and tax people for it. It's time for that to change. We've had 8 years of it, and it's time to change.
Madam Mayor?
You know, property taxes have only gone up one time since I've been county mayor. During a reappraisal year in 2009, the taxes went down to $286 or $88, I can't remember exactly which. Then a couple of years after that, we brought it back to $314 because we found that we needed some growth money. And so this mantra of extravagant spending is just not true. I think the ways to improve county revenue, I've thought about that a lot, because every time you do increase the revenue, People call it a tax because that's basically, the county government is basically the only option it has to fund local government with, majority of, is county property taxes. Other things that can be done are like increasing fees. People that use the services pay a fee. Of course, the state controls the amount you can raise those fees, so you really cannot raise them enough, and the government was never intended to make money, but you can't really raise the fees enough to even cover the expense of the operating the office and the department. I don't think that necessarily people always think about everything that county government has to pay for. We pay for the court system, the jail, the civil process. We pay for emergency medical services. We pay for the health department. We pay for all the probation services. They're the constitutional officials that are the fee-collecting officials that are elected. The county government funds all of those expenses. So they're in addition to the school system, which is funded by sales tax that the city contributes some with interlocal agreements that we have. And also, of course, the biggest one is the local property tax that funds the school. It does have some state funds, and a lot of our departments write and receive grants to help provide additional funding. So there are different sources, but the major source is the property tax. And statistics show that it really takes 10 years for growth to pay for itself, because I've had a lot of citizens say to me, well, look how fast we're growing. That increases your tax rate revenue, doesn't it? Or not your tax rate, but your tax revenue. Yes, it does, but paying for the infrastructure, the schools, and whatever's needed by the citizens, that money doesn't come forward fast enough to cover those upfront expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We will now ask questions that we have had submitted for the audience and from online sources. And these responses will be 1 minute and 30 seconds, and everyone will answer, and there's no rebuttal period for these questions. The first question: where can county spending be reduced, and where should spending increase? Mayor.
Well, to decrease county spending, by a large part, 85% of our expenses are personnel, because really local government service is what? It's people providing service to our citizens. So if you want to decrease a lot of the expenses, you're going to have to cut personnel. You have to let some people go, lay them off. And we're increasing in population. We've had an increase in population of over 12,000 people, as I said earlier, just in the last 4 years. So it requires more employees to serve more citizens. You're required by law, Tennessee Code, the county government is, to provide certain services, and usually the law will set minimum standards about how many officers you have to have, let's say in the sheriff's office, depending on how many citizens you have, how many people you have incarcerated, you have to have people working in the jail. So a lot of that's determined by the law, and the state supplies us and passes laws that are unfunded mandates. We don't have any decision about it, but we have to fund it because the state says we do. So I think that when you talk about raising money, we have very limited options on what we can do to raise funds in county government. Thank you.
Mr. Durrett?
Well, for one, I don't think we need to spend over $4 million on a parking lot. We're building a parking lot down there. If it wasn't for all the concrete ramps and the bushes and everything, that's big enough to carry a tank. We don't need a parking lot like that. We've got a park out on 149, and granted, there's a need for a park out on 149. There's need for parks all over Montgomery County, but that park's $500,000 over budget, and the reason it's over budget is they went out there and bought a piece of land that looked like Mount Everest, and they had to grade it, and they're still not finished with it. They've had to cut the project. They hadn't cut anything big, but they've had to reduce the scope of the project. So, I think that's where you start reducing your spending, is make wise decisions. Be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars. Another perfect example, it was in the paper this week, out at the Hancock Tire site. Under the agreement, when they came here, we had to have an EMS station and a fire station. Yet the city and the county are building separate buildings. They're going to have separate construction costs. They're going to have separate grading costs. They're going to have separate utility costs. Why not build a multiple-use building? You can have separate sleeping quarters for both entities. You can split the utilities down the middle. You can split the costs right down the middle. And it saves not only county taxpayers' dollars, but it saves city taxpayers' dollars. And lastly, I'd just like to go back on something the mayor said about the Oakland school. The county commission funded that school. The county mayor is the
That's
chief
your time,
executive
Mr.
officer.
Durrett.
Thank you.
Mr. Mize.
Well, I live across the river on that park on 149, and we did not receive any surveys that said we needed a park. There's somebody out there that's got loco in a moco. Because we didn't receive a park, we don't want a park out there, and the reason we moved across the river is so we didn't have to have a park. We wanted the open space. Now, there are, granted, a few people, and I like softball, I like baseball, I played it. But they need to be attached to the schools. We need to use those kind of parks around our schools so they can play. But parks we didn't need. The Veterans Plaza down there is the word. The architect ought to be taken out and made him drive down that thing 17 times to find out what kind of maze he's got. I don't know who designed that park, but there's no cost analysis. There's no priority spending. You've got to have priority spending. My priority spending is public safety #1. Every time you add a function to county government, you add people. How many people is it going to take to run that park on 149? She's growing. How much time does government have to have before you realize that every time you add a project, you add people? Every time you add people, you add cost. So do some cost analysis. Figure it out before you go spending this money. Reduce that $340 million.
Thank you very much. The last question for your debate. Would Clarksville, Montgomery County benefit from a unified government? Mr. Durrett.
Well, I think there's some areas that could probably be consolidated, but I would not be in favor of any type of consolidation of any department unless it was an absolutely true, and I mean true, savings to county taxpayers. I personally don't think it's going to happen the way the law is today. 50% of the people that live outside the corporate limits of the city of Clarksville have to approve it, and then 50% of the people that live inside the corporate limits. It's been tried. It won't pass in the county. I don't think the state law is going to be changed, and so I think it's a moot point.
Mr. Mize.
Well, cities have no one to blame but themselves for that question because of their greed. You notice they set the boundaries out for the tax dollars. There could be a growth out there. So the state legislatures put a moratorium on that. They can no longer annex. So the next question is annexation. Now, both my opponents here thought annexation was, or consolidation was very good at the Austin Peay debate. They were all for it. I live across the river. We moved across the river to get away from city government. I'm sorry, city government, that's the way it is. We moved across there so we didn't have to have that. No consolidation. The mayor had the audacity to say at the Austin Peay, say it on film, that if you offered those people across the river fire protection, that they would probably join. That's a slap in the face for our volunteer fire department out at Cunningham and Woodlawn and Palmyra. Those people out there did a fantastic job. I had a house across the river that had a fire. We had a forest fire. They came out there twice and put that thing out with efficiency unbelievable. So no, we do not need consolidation. We'll not bring it up and we'll not use resources on it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Well, we know that the law is not situated so that it's favorable for us to vote or vote in consolidated government. And like Mr. Mize said, there are people that live outside the city limits because they want their privacy and they don't want to have to pay for some services they're perceived they don't want to use. We currently in Montgomery County have a lot of services that the county pays for that, because you know people that live in the county pay, people that live in the city pay county taxes as well, because everybody lives in Montgomery County even if they live within the city limits. The Montgomery County Jail, the Montgomery County Court System, the civil process, emergency medical services, all these things that I'm telling you are funded by Montgomery County government. They serve all the citizens within the Montgomery County perimeter. The assessor property office, the county trustee now builds and collects all the property taxes, city, county, and all delinquent. All the probation services are paid by the county. the WIC Clinic, the Health Department, Community Action Agency, the Montgomery County Veterans Service Office, all the constitutionally elected officials are all funded by county government totally. County government funds 100% of the Industrial Development Board, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and 1/3 of the Economic Development Council. So county government does fund currently a lot of things that provide services for the citizens throughout the city and county. So I think consolidated government's probably a long ways off.
Thank you much. Now we will have the closing statements from each candidate, starting with the mayor. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm a forward-looking person and thinking and planning ahead. I remain committed to improving our community in education, public safety, high-paying job opportunities, improved transportation and infrastructure, and recreation, promoting a healthy lifestyle for citizens in our community. I'm excited about the next 4 years. My active community involvement is a testament to my commitment to this community. I was born and raised in Clarksville, Montgomery County. My entire career has been committed to serving others in this county, first as a classroom teacher, then as the county trustee, and now as the county mayor. We've had the most successful opportunities this county government and city has experienced in the past 8 years. And I don't think that you'll find many people that will disagree with the growth opportunities that we've experienced. I'm a progressive, team-oriented, physically responsible leader who wants to see Clarksville, Montgomery County be the very best it can be for all of our citizens. I'm committed to efficient, physically responsible, honest, transparent local government. I have no conflict of interest. I'm not a developer. I will devote my full time to serving as county mayor, as I have in the past 2 terms. Your elected local government leaders have a huge impact on our community and on your life. Vote for a qualified, proven leader. For continued community progress and success, I ask for your vote in the upcoming August general election. I will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Durrett.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to tell Mr. Mize that if you'd like to send me a little campaign contribution, you'll see my address is 316 Rocky Ford Road, and that is on the other side of the river.
Okay.
But thanks to Damar again for the opportunity to be here today. As I mentioned in my opening, I worked for the city of Clarksville for 31 years. I've managed budgets in excess of $100 million. I've dealt with every employee situation imaginable, and I'm a communicator with the public. I know how to communicate. I have the experience to be the next county mayor. And I've said this from the beginning every time I've spoken publicly. I'm concerned about the fiscal health of Montgomery County. I'm concerned 66% is what our debt has gone up in the last 8 years. Population's gone up 33%. The math doesn't work. I talked about it just a minute ago. We have an opportunity to save taxpayers' dollars, both county and city, by building a multi-use facility at the Hancock Tire Plant, EMS, Clarksville Fire and Rescue. But no, we're building separate sites, and we're costing both city and county taxpayers additional dollars. Tax increase, $1,000 8 years ago is what you're paying. Now you're paying $1,155. That's a 25% increase in your taxes. They can say what they want to say about a reappraisal. It is a tax increase. Schools, I've talked about this. We got to fund them. We got to give our kids every opportunity that they can have so they can live their dreams, because they are our future. Public safety, volunteer fire, again, give those folks what they need. Let them keep Montgomery County safe. And then on the economic development side, we can't sit back. We got to keep our foot on the gas. We can't take a Hancock Tire situation and make it a photo opportunity. And lastly, I ask each of you to use your constitutional right and vote Jim Durrett. Thank you.
Mr. Mize.
Well, every time we do this, it always boils down to philosophy. Everybody knows that public safety, education, industrial recruitment, fiscal responsibility, those are the top issues on any campaign and will be. But when you're $340 million in debt, and I say $340 million because next year they're still going to have to pay the $18 million for the Oakland school, you can't very well do very much. Now, this is a reappraisal year, and the tax rate is 314. But we know in a reappraisal year, this is a neutral. That means your tax rate It has to be lowered. For the information I received from the state, it's going to be at $2.73. Now, if she gets her way and they raise it back to the current rate of $3.14, that's 40 cents. That's 15% tax increase this year. I don't think we can afford it. I don't think businesses can afford it. I don't think senior citizens can afford it. I don't think middle class or lower class can afford it. We are going to have to tighten the budget. We are going to have to put things in priority. You're going to have to put things where they need to be. You could say everything you want about everything you want to build, but it comes down to the money and where you put it. I can do that. I'm concerned. I have common sense. And that's all it takes. I ask you for your vote. I ask you for your vote for your children. I appreciate it, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates. This completes our debate for county mayor. We will now have a 10-minute break and enjoy some music and a door prize. Thank you all.
Door prize.